Mike Carpenter in the basement studio on a Thursday afternoon. And yeah, our pace has slowed down a little bit since the end of the season, but the transfer portal heating up for Illinois and the coaching carousel as well, making its impact here in Champaign. And for this podcast, which may be a little bit shorter than some of the ones that we did during the season, we're going to talk about the 4 transfers that have come in so far, rumors about the assistant coaching position. And this is one of those things where, as I record it, God knows that by the time you listen to it, there will be news about who the third and final assistant coach for Illinois will be this year. But I'm titling this podcast Dr. Underwood, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Transfer Portal. And if you're a movie fan, that's from Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. We are now in year 3 or 4 of the transfer portal really being a big thing, a common thread throughout college basketball. And every year it's becoming more prevalent. And it was something that was really difficult to reconcile with early on because of all the uncertainty. And you can go back to Adam Miller transferring out. You can go back to Kofi Coburn putting his name out. I think he was going to do NBA draft, and maybe he wasn't going to come back here. There was all the will he, won't he. And then over the last 3 years, there has been attrition into the transfer portal. But likewise, there have been players coming in from the transfer portal. Listen, net positive for Illinois, and I don't think you can really argue much of the contrary. There have been a couple losses, specifically Brandon Podziemski, that in hindsight don't look so good. But for the most part, the R.J. Melendezes of the world, or the Jaden Epps, who, yeah, he's a bucket getter, but he would not have fit on last year's team, or a Sky Clark, for the most part, the attrition you're starting to see is not exactly lighting the world on fire where they go. And contrarily, you are bringing in guys that are having a major impact on you. Now, with the transfer portal, there's no guarantee. And the same could be said for high school recruiting. Same could be said for grad transfers, whether they're in the portal or back in the day when we got like a Sam Maniscalco. I don't know if they called that the transfer portal back then, but regardless, there's never certainty when you bring new guys in. And what we're going to talk about today with the 4 transfers thus far, and yes, there are a couple of misses, if you want to call them that we can talk about. One of them was on campus, ends up going to Xavier. One of them I don't think was ever on campus and ends up going to Kansas. We'll talk about that. No, the hit rate is not 1,000 for Brad Underwood, but the hit rate is still pretty darn high. And then compared to his peers in the Big Ten, it just really goes to show that you might have the best coach equipped to handle the transfer portal. So we got a lot to get to today. Again, might be a bit of a shorter podcast. We want to stay fresh and not go away for too long, but we also understand that with this transfer portal business, news is going to break. So I kind of was making a decision. Do I come out and do a podcast every time you get someone new? Can I really do a 45-minute podcast on Carey Booth? I'm going to like the guy, but can I do 45 minutes on it? So today we're kind of wrapping up, let's say, the first phase of the transfer portal, one that I think overall was pretty fruitful for Illinois, but there are still some big holes that they're going to need to fill, and I don't know if we know what those names are just yet. So uncertainty reigns, as it often does in the transfer portal, but so far a foundation has kind of been laid that I think you can build around for next year's roster. Before I get too far into it, got to remind you the 200 level is brought to you by DP Dough, online at dpdough.com for all the best deals and prices. dpdough.com. Also, State Farm agent Brian Hansen online at brianismyguy.com for life, auto, home, business renters. You name it, Brian is my guy, and he can be your guy as well at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend at 217-841-4728. Schedule your AC check today at Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, 217-841-4728. And finally, Owen Builders LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com. For your next home addition, patio, deck, any sort of project, get a free quote today from owenbuildersllc.com. Also got to thank the Champaign Showers Podcast Network. And as you hear the opening tag of every podcast, we do have a website, the 200levelpod.com, your one-stop shop for all things 200 level. One of those things is a column. And what I wanted to do to frame today's conversation is read this first, also entitled Dr. Underwood, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Transfer Portal. Read this and then kind of react to it and break it down a little bit more in depth here. So from Substack, published on April 17th, here's me. Last offseason, old age was all the rage. Brad Underwood entered the 2023 portal season looking for wily veterans, and he got plenty of them. Marcus Damask, Quincy Guerrier, Justin Harmon, they were all transfers entering their fifth and final years. Terrence Shannon Jr.'s return added another super senior, along with Coleman Hawkins pulling his name out of the draft. According to Ken Pom, the 2023-24 Illini had the 11th most D1 experience of any team in the nation. It showed to the tune of 29 wins, a Big Ten tournament title, and an Elite Eight appearance. No matter how this offseason turns out, next year's Illinois basketball team will have a bit more tread on its tires. Honestly, that's okay. Unlike the last two offseasons, in which age trumped continuity, Brad Underwood is finding a balance between the two. As I'm writing this, here are the four portal additions so far. First, Jake Davis from Mercer. Only a freshman, or only through his freshman year, averaged 28.6 minutes per game, 9 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and shot 38.7% from three. The second, Tre White, kind of a surprise, from Louisville, ended his sophomore year with 31.2 minutes per game, 12.3 points, 5.9 rebounds, and basically 30% from three. Kylan Boswell from Arizona, that's the big one, after a sophomore year in which he averaged 26.9 minutes, 9.5 points, 3.6 assists, 38% from three. And then finally, Carey Booth earlier this week from Notre Dame after his freshman year in which he averaged 20 minutes a game, 6.4 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 29.7% from three. Young? Yes. Inexperienced? Not quite. An all-star team, this is not. There are undeniably more questions entering this season than last, and that's when you factor in 2023's post-Ray J. Dennis, "We don't have a point guard" chorus, of which I was a part from day one. But it is a collection of athletic, rangy dudes who can stretch the floor on offense and switch on defense. It allows the coaching staff to narrow their focus on a shooting guard, wing, and a rim protector. And since none of the additions so far, with the arguable exception of Boswell, fall under the, quote, superstar transfer umbrella, it's fair to presume that the NIL coffers have enough to lure another big fish or two. There's a lot to like about Underwood's approach in the portal, and what's most encouraging is how each and every year he's becoming more efficient at identifying and closing on talent. Apart from the Ray J. Dennis miss in 2023, he has a high hit rate with his targets. So far this year, it appears as if he's batting 1,000. I wrote this before the Dante Maddox decision. He is going to Xavier. So what would we call that? 80%? 4 out of 5? Still the portal giveth and the portal taketh. Amani Hansberry, Sincere Harris, they each announced their plans to transfer. Fan favorites, and for good reason. The two of them, solid college basketball players. Amani in particular, a high ceiling if he can stay healthy. Sincere, already a defensive stopper who just needs to find some consistency on offense. Dane Danger, how I love Dane. A more amicable departure, there isn't. His run in March will live on in Illini basketball lore, and he will be successful in Memphis. But the choice was to give him a starting role or let him move on. And in the best interest of the both parties, it was the latter. If we're doing a simple accounting of additions, so we're talking Boswell, Davis, White, and Booth, and subtractions, Danger, Hansberry, Harris, you've upgraded your roster based on that alone. Take, for example, your least proven transfer in versus your most proven transfer out. Carey Booth, Notre Dame, freshman, 20 minutes a game, 6.4 points, 4.3 rebounds. Dane Danger, ending what I guess would have been a sophomore year, according to eligibility, 10.8 minutes per game, 6.1 points, 3.6 rebounds per game. Apples and oranges comparison, yes. But strictly from a production standpoint, you are not losing much. Any projection of a 2024-25 roster with the Danger, Hansberry, and Harris would have had just as many questions, if not more questions, as to what we'll end up with come November. So what we're left with now are a lot of interesting pieces with a ton of potential. Young, but not inexperienced. Talented, but unproven. Because of these uncertainties, 2025 may not be a repeat performance of 2024. Unlike last year, though, there is less of a you have to win now mindset. This will not be a roster of one-year rentals. Imagine 2025-26, year two with these transfers, senior year Ty Rodgers, sophomore Morez Johnson, freshman Jeremiah Fears, and whoever else rounds out the roster, in all likelihood, high-impact scores. We're looking at an entire roster full of top 100 recruits with plenty of game experience. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Mixing win now and developmental approaches will make the 2024-25 season fun to watch unfold. Hopefully, early season frustrations will morph into late in the year successes. Of course, we don't know how this all shakes out. However, Underwood's track record suggests it will result in another NCAA tournament team and perhaps even more. Okay, so that was the first part of that. We'll get to the assistant coach part in a bit. When it comes to the transfer portal and what we've seen so far, overall, I like this targeted approach that we're seeing from Underwood, much as the same way I like last year's approach. Even though a Marcus Damask and a Quincy Guerrier and a Justin Harmon were not the sexiest additions, they did fill needs. Now, there is a big old matzo ball that needs to be filled on this team. That is a proven scorer at the 2 and the 3. Big deal, right? And, of course, you could argue a rim protector. So it's not as if you are done yet. In fact, you're probably going to add 3 more guys, I would presume. This is where the assistant coaching conversation, which we'll get into in a bit, may play some sort of role. But you did strike out on Dante Maddox, who's going to Xavier, I'm guessing, to be their lead guard. And I wonder if the Boswell thing didn't hurt. And I also know that Sean Miller, that guy has credentials too. So it's not like you lost him to a scrub. Xavier is going to be a good school this year. Hey, no harm, no foul. You brought him on campus. You gave it your all. He's going to another school. That's going to happen sometimes. A.J. Storr, let's get this out of the way. He's going to Kansas. So the report that came out about 3 weeks ago, let's call it a rumor, but I would not be surprised if it's veracity, was that he was asking for like $1.5 million. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. There's a lot of fire or smoke, I should say, around the fact that his mom was getting a bit involved, and everything from a job to a house to, stuff with his girlfriend who also plays basketball at the D1 level. And listen, I would have loved to have A.J. Storr. He will make your team better because he's really, really good. But do you want all that outside noise? I would take a lot of outside noise for a talent like A.J. Storr. You don't want to dismiss that. And I'm not going to pretend like we dodged a bullet because, again, you're immediately upgraded with him on the team, and I think he would have been fine as far as fit and all of that. He is Terrence Shannon Jr. light. But I do find it interesting that Bill Self, this is now year 2. You got Hunter Dickinson last year, and you get A.J. Storr this year, and in a way they're 2 different players, but what I think a similarity is between them, they aren't exactly leaders. They're highly productive college players. And each of them has a little bit of baggage with them. So they are the kinds of guys that on these transfer portal boards are surefire top 5 picks, right? Like you get them, they're a 5-star transfer portal addition. It seems like Bill Self, unlike some of his other peers, take Nate Oates from Alabama. Nate Oates has done this without the likes of an A.J. Storr or a Hunter Dickinson. Brad Underwood, Terrence Shannon Jr., for example, became an All-American caliber player, but he wasn't coming in after his junior year at Texas Tech. Matthew Meyer, a good addition, but not Hunter Dickinson. I guess what my point is that it seems like Kansas is taking the Dodgers or let's say the Yankees from 10, 15 years ago approach of just getting the biggest name in free agency and thinking that that's going to cure what ails you, and I just don't think it's that simple. It depends on what they build around A.J. Storr. I think the better fit would have been here. And there was just, hey, A.J., you're Terrence Shannon Jr. I mean, you played against this guy. You saw it. Your table is ready. If it was coming down to a point where it's truly a bidding war, then fine. Good luck to you, kid, but not one I'm going to lose sleep over. One thing I want to say before we get too far into this, while I mentioned A.J. Storr, and this kind of lends itself to the conversation about Wisconsin, and I want to just get this out there. Schadenfreude, whatever you want to call it, boy, is it fun to see Wisconsin just flail. Chucky Hepburn is in the portal. Wisconsin is going to suck next year. Unless Stephen Crowell averages 40 points a game, I don't see it. I don't see it. What, Blackwell as a guard? You think that? No. That's not. There's not much going on there. And I know that I've said that before, and then great guard gets off to a hot start, and then they're, top 4 in the Big Ten or something like that. No, it's over, guys. We know it's over. You can feel it. You can sense it. Wisconsin fans know it. Hell, Michigan State. A.J. Hoggard is transferring out. He's not going to the pros. He's going to go to another school. And I know he wasn't a perfect player, but that's a really good player. So before we get too down on losing an Amani Hansberry and a Sincere Harris and a Dane Danger, who I like Dane the best of all, these guys were not to the impact levels of a Chucky Hepburn or an AJ Storr or an AJ Hogard. And for the ones that you have lost to the transfer portal, you're finding replacements. Now, maybe not one directly for a Dane Danger. You aren't going to get a guy like Dane Danger because that's not really what you're trying to run. It worked out beautifully in a few of those March matchups and helped you get to the Elite Eight. I love watching Dane, but let's not pretend like Dane was fantastic against Iowa State. Okay, he was fine. He was impactful, but a bit messy. No, Dane really brought it when you needed it against Morehead State and Duquesne. And in the Big Ten tournament, he had a couple good games in there as well. So Dane is awesome for what he did down the stretch. And I would have taken him in the same role, a bit expanded. But Dane also had to think of himself here and realize that I got to play 30 minutes a game. I got to be a starter if I'm going to have much of a career outside of college basketball. So that's amicable. The two names that I think are sticking in people's craw a bit are Amani Hansberry and Sincere Harris. This leads me a bit to the assistant coach discussion, which we'll have. But let's just start with focusing on the players. Amani Hansberry has a high ceiling. I loved what I saw this year. I was excited to see that development. I thought he would have been impactful this year. It will remain to be seen if Carey Booth is as good this year as Amani Hansberry wherever he ends up. Let's call it what it likely will be, West Virginia. And I do like the overall skill set of a Carey Booth in this offense more than an Amani Hansberry, but similar to Ty Rodgers, I just like the kid's moxie, Hansberry's moxie. He's going to make some coach very happy. But I don't think we should also dissuade or discount, I should say, excuse me, I'm using wrong words left and right today. I don't think we should necessarily discount the fact that that back injury, which was lingering for him, was not a concern. How many times have you seen, maybe not so much at Illinois, we've actually been pretty fortuitous with injury history, but just in basketball or sports in general, you get a lingering back injury, and it just kind of can hamstring what a player can do or what they can become. I do think that'll be something to watch out for. I hope Amani has a super healthy career, a successful career. This is, again, in this day and age, not any sour grapes. Good luck to him. Sincere Harris, going to miss his energy defensively. Offensively, how much did he grow in his redshirt year? And it seems like most people in the building and those following the team figured the minute he redshirted, he was gone. Hey, that is a shrewd decision on his part. And again, you wish him well. This feels different than, let's say, 3 years ago when an Adam Miller said, I'm out of here. That pissed me off. I was pissed at him. I was pissed at Brad Underwood. How could you let this happen? And now you got Adam Miller, who's basically just following him under where are they now? You know, just I will always look back on the Adam Miller thing like almost a Bryant Nortree. Like, what were you thinking? You're the Illinois guy at the state school. You had a very promising start to your career, and then you left, and then people just forgot about you. Like Arizona State fans even give a crap about Adam Miller. Anyway, that's a story that I've rehashed a few times, and I don't need to rehash any more than that. But this feels less angsty. Oh, you guys are leaving? Good luck to you. I'm sure that the Elite Eight has something to do with it, okay? I'm sure that getting the albatross off of your shoulders, off your back, whatever metaphorical imagery you want to use there, makes it a little bit easier of a pill to swallow. But this leads me to my next discussion, okay? Chester Frazier came in at a time when you needed it the most. And actually, as I just read this last bit of the article, I just did a little footnote kind of thing on the coaching carousel. No, Kentucky did not hire Brad Underwood, nor did they even target him, apparently. And whether that's a bullet dodged or Kentucky hilariously botching their coaching search, Illinois appears to have their head guy locked in for the foreseeable future. That's a good thing. But the coaching carousel did find its way to Champaign as Chester Frazier left his alma mater for an associate head coach position at West Virginia. That's also a good thing. This is not to belittle Frazier's importance on Underwood's staff. He came into the program during a precarious time. Orlando Antigua, Chin Coleman, and Stephen Gentry all left after the 2021 season. He provided stability when it was sorely needed. He was on a staff that won a Big Ten regular season and tournament title. His legacy here is secure. In the last column, I asked the question, if your head coach isn't getting mentioned in coaching carousel conversations, how good of a coach are they? Similarly, if your assistants aren't getting poached by other programs, how good of a program do you even have? I remember the Weber era. Jay Price, Wayne McLean, fine coaches, I'm sure. No one wanted them. No one. And whether that's correlation or causation or a mix of the two, I'm not sure. But it can't be a coincidence. Under Weber, the program was as stagnant as the coaching staff. Illinois is an attractive place for assistant coaches. The NIL budget allows them to cook in both transfer portal and high school recruiting. The facilities are top-notch. The media coverage allows for assistants at successful programs to build their resume and reputation. Underwood will have his pick. If the rumors are any indication, it may be a familiar face. We'll get to that. And while I like Chester, this rumor would provide an immediate boost in both recruiting and development that Chester would not have provided himself. Whether it's the transfer portal or coaching carousel, change is inevitable. With Brad Underwood's program, most of the change has been for the better. So, Chester, appreciate it. Thank you. This is a difference in philosophy is what it sounds like from anyone connected with the program. You have Chester, who is someone that had to develop himself as a college basketball player and who brought in these high school recruits that, while good, needed development as well. And that's not the kind of program that Illinois is really going to run anymore. Now, this is not to guarantee that Underwood's model is going to be successful year in, year out. But I do think it is much more adaptable and in tune with what this college basketball landscape is than what a Chester Frazier would do. The Matt Painters of the world, yes, he struck gold this year with Edie and a bunch of dudes. Homegrown, except for Lance Jones. Matt Painter has work to do for next year. Okay, that was their shot, and they made it all the way to the title game. They accomplished everything you could have asked for that team when you had an opponent like UConn staring them in the face in the final. They did everything they could have, and that is kudos to Matt Painter, but he still is going to have work to be done. I'm not convinced that Matt Painter is going to just kind of cruise to a bunch more Big Ten titles now that we're further into the portal era. I do think it is adapt or die. Chester Frazier, if this truly was a situation where his mindset or the things he believes in didn't mesh with Brad Underwood, okay, that's fine. That's a professional thing. You go your way, we'll go ours. I don't have as much, and this is full disclosure, I also do not have as much of a tie-in as an Illini fan to Chester Frazier. And as unfair as it may be, I don't view him in the same way that I view, a D. Brown, Darren Williams, Roger Powell, that's a better example, who's in the D1 coaching ranks. Because I associate Chester with the lean Weber years, right? The downturn. Chester was a two-star recruit that made the most of what he had. But despite a solid senior year where he really figured things out, it's probably toxic of me to do this. I can't help but disassociate him from that Weber stagnation. So Chester gave you stability and a bump when you needed it. I just don't know how much you're losing in terms of recruiting and development, especially when you think about who you are likely bringing in. Well, I say likely. Listen, there's a smoke beyond smoke about Orlando Antigua coming back. It makes a lot of sense. You know that Josh Whitman would pony up. If Orlando Antigua doesn't want to go to Arkansas and follow Cal, who, hard to believe, but you're in a position now where coaching for Brad Underwood at Illinois is a better deal than coaching under Coach Cal. And I think it is, objectively. Brad Underwood has got a higher Q rating in college basketball coaching right now than Coach Cal. You bring in an Antigua, as all the smoke seems to be sort of lending or trending towards, then Chester who? And not in a belittling way, but that's an upgrade. That's a major upgrade. And I do think, and this is from conversations with Isaac and Trevor, and Trevor made this point, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but you have right now a program that in the last 5 years is a top 10 program. And I'm basing that solely on wins and win percentage, on tangible accomplishments like banners you get to hang in the rafters, and now finally an Elite Eight to validate that, yes, right now you are one of the 10 best programs in the country. Your NIL pockets are deep. And you are competing for some of the best guys in the portal, and the high school guys that you care about bringing in are all really, really good. But the one thing about this coaching staff that was a little bit puzzling is that it felt like you got an A-level coach, and your assistant coaching staff is like B, Tim Anderson's the star recruiter. I don't really know what Jeff Alexander's role is. I'm sure he's a nice guy and a good coach. I don't know what his role is. I don't. He is bringing in Jeremiah Fears, it sounds like. That's a coup. Probably going to keep you on the staff for a bit. And he seems to be a trusted advisor to Brad Underwood. Speaking of Underwoods, Tyler Underwood, offensive guru. I know Jay Wright had something to do with this transformation when he had a conversation with Underwood back in November. But Tyler Underwood is pretty highly regarded for his basketball acumen. And I'm just going to throw this out there, and you might be saying, Carp, you're into nepotism now? I'm just going to throw this out there. What if we found ourselves in a position where this basketball program is so well established that, 10, 12 years from now, after Underwood's like, I'm going to finally hang it up, got a couple Final Fours, got some more Big Ten titles, here's my coach in waiting, Tyler Underwood. I'm okay. Listen, there are far worse situations to be in. I love stability. I love stability that, of course, is successful, not just stability for the sake of stability. And people that are knowledgeable about basketball have a lot to say about a Tyler Underwood. He will be an assistant coach here. And when he gets that position, I'm not going to cry nepotism like I did for a Miles Smith, who had no credentials. Now you could say Tyler is a little bit under the collar. Yeah, you were right about that. He's still a young guy that's getting into this college coaching thing, but he does have the pedigree of his dad. He already has the respect of the coaches on that staff and the players under him. He's a valuable part of this coaching staff. That's an aside. I just want to throw that out there. There are far worse situations to be in. I'm thinking about how Illinois has always had to go outside and get coaches, and how fortuitous it would be to finally just kind of have your guy ready to go. Anywho, off of that, we're talking about a B staff for an A head coach. Why not have an A staff for an A head coach? Orlando Antigua, I think, bumps you up to that. This guy is worth the money that you give to him. And I know it didn't really work out with Coach Cal, but it wasn't for a lack of talent being brought in. It wasn't for a lack of developing younger guys. It was just that Calipari is living in 2012. And these all-star teams of 18, 19-year-olds, that's not going to win to the degree that it once did. So Antigua not wanting to go to Arkansas and wanting to come back to a place that he's familiar with and a coach that he considered staying with. It's not like Antigua moved to Kentucky without thinking about it. Illinois made him think about it, and he liked it up here from all indications. So that is the big smoke out there. And again, by the time you listen to this, that might be just common knowledge, might just be the news. But when it comes to the assistant coaching carousel, you could do far worse than that. And good luck to Chester. He's going to build a career for himself. And you know that his teams will embody what Chester embodies. I want that toughness too, but I think he can have both the toughness of a Chester Frazier, but also the elite recruiting abilities of an Orlando Antigua. So, yeah, I see something here. Eric, I think, asked this in the chat thread. Doesn't Orlando Antigua's wife not like Champaign? Yeah, money talks. Would you like Fayetteville? I don't know. I've never been to Fayetteville. And Lexington, nice enough city, but it doesn't sound like he's going to stay under Pope at Kentucky. So, hey, go to a place that you know. And you're going to get paid more at Illinois than probably anywhere else. And it just seems like at a certain point, when there's that much smoke behind it and the tea leaves are all going that direction, okay. Is it a sure thing? It's not a sure thing until we see the press release. But whether it's him or somebody else, I get the feeling that Illinois is going to ante up for this next assistant coach. And then the question becomes, how does that impact your transfer portal recruiting? Now, we talked about Maddox and Storr not not coming here, obviously, Maddox going to Xavier and then Storr going to Kansas, there's work left to be done, undoubtedly. And I think over the next couple weeks, it will come into clearer focus what you're looking at for the 2 and the 3. Probably within the next week, you're going to get a better idea. I would be surprised if after what happened last year with Ray J. Dennis, that you get kind of left in the lurch again as far as positions of need. And keep in mind, the Ray J. Dennis thing was in May. And if I recall, late May. We're April 18th. So this transfer portal thing, you're going to get more names popping into it based on coaching carousel moves, based on additions that a roster may bring in another shooter, and this other shooter says, you know what, I don't want to. No, I'm going someplace that I can be the starter. Dante Maddox would have been a good pickup. He looks great on tape. He's explosive, and he's just a scorer. You needed a scorer, and he looks like a tough, gritty kid. That's a bummer. So you're going to have to go out and get a dude for that. You're going to have to go out and get a wing. And for me, the final priority is a rim protector. And you might say, well, Carp, don't you need a rim protector? Yeah, you do, but I think that your identity is offense now. And I'm okay with that because I had a hell of a good time watching it last year. And it won you a lot of games. And I do think that other than the Eddies and the Klingons, and to a lesser extent, the Julian Reeses of the world, there are going to be some bigs in the Big Ten that you want a serviceable rim protector. But right now, the priority is scoring. You've got to get scores because you got a point guard. I'm very high on Boswell entering his junior year. You do have some cool pieces that I think the rotation will figure itself out, but I want a couple more sure things, and I'm pretty sure that Underwood and his staff want a few more sure things as well. So that's what's left to be done. Now, before we get out of here, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I was going to try to address. I mean, listen, this news moves so quick that I feel like a lot of these upcoming podcasts are going to be kind of quick hitters. There is one more thing I could bring up, and this is not to end it on a sour note. There is a spring football game Saturday. I'm not going. There's other things that I have to do, and that's okay. I was just thinking on my run today about this weird pattern that I and maybe other Illini fans have. When one program is doing good, it only exacerbates what the other program isn't doing well. And in this case, I was already, after the Northwestern game last November, just kind of done with Illinois football for a while. I didn't want to think about it. I don't know if I've honestly hardly talked about it since the end of last season. 5-7 against an actual, just a craptastic schedule. And Eric asked if is Owe coming back. That's the rumor, Eric, yes. Orlando Antigua coming back. That is the rumor. But, anywho's that spring football game is upon us. We got some guys entering the transfer portal. Some names don't really matter, but some names like a Zach Toby, I thought he was going to be an important player for you in a position group that kind of sucks. I'm at a place right now, and full disclosure, I was kind of there with Underwood last year, even though Underwood has had a lot more success than a Brett Bielema at Illinois. I'm at a place right now where it's like whatever Brett Bielema or Aaron Henry say, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. What I haven't talked about, because we haven't talked about football in a long time, first off, football, oh my God, this was really pissing me off. During the March Madness run, okay, I'm pretty sure the day that Illinois is about to play in the Sweet 16, they announce, hey, game time update, we're playing Eastern Illinois, not on a Saturday, on a Thursday. Kiss my ass, Illinois, even though if they didn't make the decision. But you know what? I'm not going. I'm not going on a Thursday night to tailgate for a crap opponent that you're going to pummel, but ultimately has no bearing on the rest of your season. I'm not going. That's a garage tailgate. We'll be in there so I can get to bed at a halfway decent hour and not traipse my ass and all my equipment out there to tailgate for Eastern Illinois on a Thursday freaking night. 20,000 fans, fill the stands, whoop-de-freaking-do. This, a month or two after the DIA was asking for 500 more buckaroos from people to secure their Lot 31 pass. After a 5-7 season, may I remind you yet again, against an absolutely crap schedule, where you couldn't follow up a successful year with just one bowl game. One freaking bowl game. because you can't beat Northwestern. You can't hold on to a lead against Wisconsin. You get your asses handed to you by Purdue in embarrassing fashion. You don't even show up for Nebraska. And now you're asking for $500 more bucks to tailgate in your lot? And then you get rid of one of the college football tailgate Saturdays. The ones that I look forward to, even if the team sucks to high heaven. And in my life, they often have. Whether or not they had any control over that Eastern game, it's a bad look. After you ask for more money from the people that have already poured money into your mid football program. Mid, as the kids say. Now, we have that. Again, it was like, do not be giving this information out when our basketball team is actually doing something. I don't need to know of your existence right now. To me, this is going to sound ridiculous. I understand it. But to me, it's like, wait a second. Football, shut up. Be quiet. This is not your time. We are not interested in you, okay? You really just kind of blew it last year. We'll get back to you in August when hope always springs eternal. I don't want to hear from them right now. Anyway, we're at a point where whatever Bielema says, whatever Aaron Henry says, I don't want to hear it. I'm in totally, I got to see it mode. I got to see it. By the way, the schedule update shouldn't have been Eastern Illinois on a Thursday. The schedule update should have been we bought out of the Kansas game because Jalen Daniels is going to come in and kick our ass. I am going to be the surliest fan in that stadium that day. I apologize in advance. I'm going to be so surly with my arms crossed. I might have a sign that says, "Told you so." Should have bought out of it. Should have bought out of the stupid game as we fall to 1-1, or I think it's the second game of the year. And oh, look we end the season 5-7. I wonder what we could have done to not go 5-7 and make a bowl game. Oh, maybe it would have been buying out of the game that we were never going to win in the first place. You aren't beating Kansas. I will pledge to you right now on April 18th, I will literally boil a hat and eat part of the hat. We always say, I'll eat a hat. I will eat part of a hat, a boiled hat, if we beat Kansas, and I will happily do so. But until I see it, I can't believe a damn thing coming out of the football offices. I have seen it worse over there, yes. But it is so maddening to have looked at what a squandered opportunity last year was. There is no momentum over there. You don't feel it. I don't feel it. We don't see it. It's certainly not through the transfer portal. It's not through high school recruiting. What you're banking on this year is Luke Altmaier being a stud, and he might be. I really like Luke Altmaier. You're banking on your running back situation being better, and I think it could be. But there's no Isaiah Williams. There's no Johnny Newton. You might get 3 or 4 guys drafted. You're definitely going to have a top 10, top 12 pick in a Johnny Newton. And I'm asking myself, how the hell did he go 5-7 last year? Oh, right, Aaron Henry was learning on the job. That's what we were told. He learned a lot. A Big Ten defensive coordinator learned a lot. Yeah, well, you know what? I would love to get paid that much money to learn on the job. And that sounds facetious, and it sounds a bit bitter of me. I understand we grow in our roles. But this is high-level football. You find me any program that actually gives a crap, they are not going to have anyone say, hey, you know what's great? Even though we didn't make a bowl game, our coordinator learned a lot. What the hell are we doing here? So that's a rant, a pent-up rant that I saved for after basketball season because I wasn't going to toxify my podcast with Illinois freaking football and the mid-ass program that it is, or just even the mere thought of it makes me think, oh my God, it is a lifetime's worth of 5-7, 5-7. Every time you do something good, 5-7. Book it. I want to eat so much crow or hat or whatever after this football season. I don't think the schedule's all that tough. But it's harder than last year. And there's no way that this football team on paper is better than last year. So if we are going to have any success, it's going to be this. You go 7-5, right? You see development and guys emerge from the program that have been in the program for a while. that is really the only way I think that we feel good on November 28th or 29th. It's possible. Do you feel it? No, I don't feel it. I think this seems like 4-8. 4-8, 5-7. I'm guessing the Vegas line might be 5.5 over under or 4.5. I'm not sure. But if it were 5.5, I'd go under. If it were 4.5, I wouldn't put any money on it. I just don't feel good about this. And it's just, things south of Kirby Avenue are going so well. I would like my cake and also to eat it too. And football's just not giving that to us. So, listen, that's the life of an Illini fan as long as basketball is doing well. And I say that because if we're in September and Illinois football gets off to another crap start, that just sucks. But, we will pivot to basketball before you can blink an eyelash. I mean, we will not waste any time pivoting to basketball. But I just had to get that rant out there, so thank you for bearing with me on that. I am a little bit annoyed with football. Real quick before I get out of here, just got to make sure that I'm not missing anything in the chat thread. And as Ian already says, I'm more ready for next basketball season than Illinois football. Yeah. And as Eric says, all I care right now is basketball. We're going to see it on Saturday. What looks to be a decent day for a spring football game. And how many people go to those anyways if you aren't an Alabama fan or an Ohio State fan? But if they would have had a better year, I would have considered it. But I'd rather do other things. I don't need it's crazy. A year ago, my wife and I went to Gordyville for the Coaches versus Cancer thing. I was more excited to see Brett Bielema than Brad Underwood. This is fanboy Carp being a true fanboy, riding that roller coaster. Well, guess what? I'm full gung-ho on Brad Underwood. I think the last year did wonders for Brad Underwood in terms of his perception amongst Illini fans long-term. But boy, did football just put a big old dent in Brett Bielema. And that can change. Again, beat Kansas, then my ears perk up, and I'm thinking, okay, we could. But we I think already kind of know how this season's going to go. You're going to score some points. At least you won't be completely boring. You're going to look more like an Indiana team. I just don't see a defense worth a damn. I don't see it. I don't understand how you lose a generational defensive lineman for your program, and you still haven't solved the secondary. And you clearly haven't replaced a lot on the defensive line. What are you banking on that side? You better score 35 points a game if you're going to make a bowl. And maybe they can, because I think you might have the quarterback for it. I really do like Altmaier. But I don't know. Nathan Shieldhouse is a pretty good quarterback too. And if you don't have a defense that can stop anybody, what we're looking at is a team like 2013. I mean, they scored some points, but they gave up a lot more, and they finished 4-8. So, sigh. I hope they give me something of interest. I don't think we'll be doing. We spent August 2023, 2 podcasts a week, getting ready for football season. We were so excited. I don't think that's going to happen. August is going to be a little bit slower this year. But hey, transfer portal reigns. I went a little bit longer thanks to that Illinois football rant. And thank you for indulging me on that. Before we get out of here, got to thank DP Dough, online at dpdough.com for all the best deals and prices. dpdough.com. State Farm agent Brian Hansen, online at brianismyguy.com for life, auto, home, business, renters, you name it. Brian is my guy, and he can be your guy as well at brianismyguy.com. Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend. Give them a call at 217-841-4728. Schedule your AC check today with Dogtown Heating, Air, and Plumbing, your home's best friend at 217-841-4728. And finally, got to thank Owen Builders LLC, online at owenbuildersllc.com. Apologies. It was a long day at school. I feel like I'm just tripping over words more than usual today. Home additions, patios, decks, a gallery of their excellent work online at owenbuildersllc.com. Got to thank Champaign Showers Podcast Network, and thank you, the listener. Website is the200levelpod.com for the audio, the video, and the written parts of the podcast. I've enjoyed writing, and I hope that you subscribe to our Substack, and you'll get the articles as they come out. Let's go land us some studs in the transfer portal. We got a basketball program that is legit. And that's what I'm focusing my attention on. Hey, have a great weekend, everybody. We'll be back hopefully with some big news next week when it comes to assistant coaches and other potential additions. Take care, everybody. It is the 200 level. Thanks, YouTube. Have a good weekend, and we will see y'all later.